Welcome back to AM Northwest. From Carson to Conan, Letterman to SNL, our next guest has a love of late night television, both past and present. His new podcast reveals behind the scenes stories you always wanted to know. We welcome the host of Inside Late Night, Mark Malkoff. Good to have you with us, Mark. So,
Thanks
first of all,
for having me.
You bet. Where does this passion come from for late night TV?
You know, my dad got me very early on Friday nights staying up to watch. I was like 5 or 6, watch Johnny Carson, and I just kind of fell in love with the medium. I was going as a teenager, driving 3.5 hours from Hershey, Pennsylvania to New York to go see Letterman, to see Saturday Night Live, camping out all night on the scary streets of New York City.
Wow.
To see this show. I was, like 16, 17, and just to be over there and being able to have access, especially over in New York, to be able to meet a lot of these people was amazing. I worked at Letterman's show for a year, so that's Dave. And I just, there was just something about that world of late night and just the people behind the scenes, the putting together. And I mean, you talked to the guests that went on the show, and some of it was the highlight of their career. Jerry Seinfeld still says to this day that going on Carson, his debut, is the highlight of anything he's ever done.
Oh, yes, of course. And so what was it like, though, when we just showed, you mentioned Dave Letterman. What was it like working with him?
I was at the point at CBS when we were there that he had been doing the show collectively for a while. So by the time I got there, he was really isolated. I saw him twice. I saw him once at the Christmas party, which was one of the last Christmas parties on stage. And when we took a photo together, and it was one of those things where a lot of times these hosts, after the years, they just kind of like get a little bit more isolated. But when I did meet him a few times, I got the photo and stuff. He was really nice. Actually, he's really shy. I mean, Johnny Carson was really shy. And when you get these people that, the public doesn't understand necessarily, that some of these people are introverts, that that it doesn't really make sense that they're quiet, and sometimes it seems like maybe they're a little bit aloof, where it's not personal at all.
Yeah. Tell me about some of your highlights from your podcast, Inside Late Night.
It's been great to sit down with everyone. I did almost 400 podcasts about Johnny Carson, talking to everyone in this. We're talking about like Saturday Night Live with Rachel Dratch, just the journey of her getting on the show, and just there was so many hurdles for these people to get their gigs. People like Robert Smigel, who did all the cartoons, it was like broadcast news, barely getting the thing, and it was like down to the second. And Robert and I talked early Conan, 'cause I was there from the beginning when nobody liked the show. And Robert and I have known each other since I was 17. He does Triumph the Insult comic dog. I mean, Rob Corddry from The Daily Show's coming up and had, I think, 4 hours notice that he was going to be guest hosting for Jon Stewart. And it was just one of the most terrifying things he ever experienced, but glorious. But a lot of people just don't really think that some of the most confident comedians back there and actors are backstage terrified every single time. I mean, I know Tom Brokaw told me that Tom Hanks and Martin Short care more about scoring on Letterman than they did like on movies and TV. I mean, going on with especially Dave and Johnny Carson and doing SNL is sometimes the pinnacle of their career. I mean, the director of Saturday Night Live, the two ago, told me a lot of people that host SNL say it was the best week of their life, and I've heard them say that a couple times. Hosts.
Janine Garofalo, what did she say about SNL?
She had a really tough year. It was a transition year, and she just basically, said that they were trying to get her to sign a contract for 5 years, and they waited, and she waited until the show actually started, and Don Pardo's doing all the credits before she would sign her contract, and she said, "I'm only doing 1 year. If you don't want me, I will walk out right now. I won't be in the show." And this is during the show. And it was just, for certain people, it was just a really rocky time. You have cast members that are still in therapy, not that Janine is, but it was tough. She admitted that she was drinking too much, it was just a tough. But then if you talk to people that came after her, right after her, like Molly Shannon or Will Ferrell, they loved the place. So, I think it really depends on who's there. And what's going on. But in terms of SNL, can you believe that 50 years coming up, that big Radio City music, they're going to do that big special. I mean, it's unbelievable, the longevity of that show.
Michael Ian Black, he had some experiences to talk about, like some bad experiences.
He did. I mean, he almost got that Craig Ferguson job, the Late Late Show. I mean, at one point they told him he had it, and all these political, it's like House of Cards a little bit with some of these episodes with the politics backstage. And he wasn't a political guy. I mean, Jay Leno was going to all the NBC affiliates before he got the job. And, him and his manager did a lot of really specific things to get in good graces, where Michael Ian Black did not understand that and apparently didn't make eye contact with Les Moonves when they had their meeting, and didn't realize that was going to be
oh my gosh,
break the deal and stuff. So yeah, he was great. I mean, it was really fun talking to him, and he had some disastrous, awkward Letterman appearances. There are people that are still only went on the show once and like, what did I do wrong? I talked to them and they play it over and over in their heads.
Let me ask you this: what does your wife think of your obsession with late night?
Oh goodness, Christine is very, very patient. She has grown to really appreciate the medium more, being married to me. But I mean, when we run into these people on the street, Christine's like, I'll be back in a half hour, and she just knows there's this connection with myself and people that have gone through this and people that worked in the media, where she loves when I took her over to Saturday Night Live and some of these shows. But this is a world I've been in since I was a teenager, so for her to kind of see this, what I was immersed in, was a treat. But yeah, she's great. She produces the podcast, by the way. So.
Oh, that's great. Now, this is not the first time you have been on our show on AM Northwest. In fact, we're going to go back to AM Northwest 2008. Take a look.
A comedian in New York City had to have his apartment fumigated, which I guess happens when you live in an apartment in New York City. And he had nowhere to live, and so he made arrangements to live at IKEA for a week.
Oh, because they have those living spaces.
They have those living spaces. He lives in 700 square feet.
Oh, my.
So here he is being greeted by the IKEA manager, and he's moved into the space. I mean, he's brought his own clothes. He has brought his own...
well, his wife can't be doing this with him.
No, his wife is not doing it with him. His wife doesn't want to live in a store, so she's staying with relatives.
Yeah.
He says, by the way, customers can come in and visit, but they have to take their shoes off. He eats at the IKEA restaurant. His only problem, no running water in his little bathroom.
Well, he has to use the employee or the public restrooms then.
I
would hope so.
What'd you think?
Goodness. That was, that's nicer than my New York City apartment. That week people were driving like 3 or 4 hours to see the guy living in the store. It was such a surreal week. It took me about a couple months to convince IKEA, but it was a global story. It was in newspapers in Japan, Italy. It was really one of the early web series. I mean, especially with a company like IKEA. So that was definitely one of the best weeks of that I've had, living in a furniture store. But, very patient wife. Very patient wife.
Love that. We're going to tell everyone more about the podcast. If you'd like to find out more about Inside Late Night, we'll have all that information on our website, k2.com. Mark, thank you so much.
Oh, this was so much fun. Thank you for having me.
It was very fun. All right, we'll be right back with more AM Northwest. Don't go away.